Chapter 11. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the dark forest, Bai Lan sprinted, her eyes like flashlights, scanning every shadow, listening for the slightest sound. Maybe it was just her luck, but Bai Lan kept hearing screams. Each time she raced to the source, she arrived too late. The demon was gone, vanished, leaving Bai Lan's search efforts fruitless, but this didn't faze her. Bai Lan remained calm. Sure, she wanted to off the demon and score some points, but her attitude was pretty chill. If she found it, great. If not, no big deal. Soon, she heard another scream. Internally, Bai Lan frowned. Are this year's Demon Slayer recruits total duds? That's the 7th one, counting the others, she muttered, sprinting toward the sound. Bai Lan knew what that scream meant. Another recruit had met a grisly end, courtesy of the demon. Every scream she'd heard before led to the mangled remains of another hopeful. None had survived. This one would likely be the same. Bai Lan didn't know these kids, but she guessed they'd choked when faced with the demon's cruelty. A recruit accepted for testing should at least be able to handle a standard demon, like those on Vine Attack Mountain. Excluding the hand demon, the trainers wouldn't send them to their deaths otherwise. So, aside from being ambushed, the main reason these recruits were dying was sheer panic. They lost their nerve and handed the demon the win. Bai Lan wasn't judging them, though. Compared to those who could calmly watch the carnage until the end, she was still unlucky. That Xiang Chang Rabbit was lucky, though. That year, a ton of people passed because Chang Rabbit took out all the demons except the big bad, who ultimately took him out. If you had that kind of luck, constantly running into demons, the pass rate would be sky high. Too bad they missed that boat. Their luck just plain sucked. Of course, demon slayers who scraped by like that usually ended up as cannon fodder anyway. They hadn't been truly tested before joining the ranks. Were Chang Rabbit's demon slayer classmates lucky or unlucky? Bai Lan wondered silently. Arriving at the scream's origin, her eyes lit up. Speak of the devil, she murmured, a smile playing on her lips. Before her, an enormous, grotesque figure composed of countless thick arms lumbered after a fleeing recruit. The next moment, Bai Lan attacked, a flash of steel at her waist, moving like lightning. It was the hand demon, the one she'd been searching for, the source of Rinataki Sakanji's nightmares, the reason breathing swordsman couldn't get a break. Right now, the hand demon was toying with the recruit, like a cat with a mouse. It could easily extend its arms and grab him, but it was keeping pace at a leisurely speed, relishing the hunt. The terrified recruit ran for his life, but he couldn't escape the hand demon's gaze. He had been very angry at this time, and he liked to torture his enemies when he was angry. The hand demon trailed right behind him. Yesterday, it had been overjoyed at the scent of humans in the forest, because that fox-masked brat was about to show up again. He was going to torture and kill that brat once more, that student of Rinataki Sakanji, the one who had sent him here. He hated the guy to the core, but he couldn't do anything about it. After seeing the kid in the fox mask for the first time, and hearing that the kid was Rinataki Sakanji's disciple, he enjoyed hunting down the demon slayer wearing fox masks. He searched all night yesterday but couldn't find them, which made him extremely angry. Didn't that old geezer train new demon slayers this year? How could that be? The only fun he has here is gone. How could this be? He didn't believe it, so today, as soon as the sun set, he was the first to take action and continue to look for this fox-wearing man. The imp in the mask, however, after searching for several hours, he still couldn't find it. This made his inner anger reach its peak, and he began to hunt down other swordsmen everywhere. When he was angry, he liked to torture his enemies like this. When he heard the enemy's frightening and shrill screams could somewhat calm the anger in his heart. However, it all ended completely in the next moment. What the heck? Who's that kid? The hand demon's head spun through the air, a look of astonishment on its face. Chapter 12. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Even though he'd offed a bunch of Rinataki's students, the hand demon was still just a scrub. Bai Lan watched the meatball turn to ash, slid his Nichiren sword back into its sheath, and muttered to himself, sure, the hand demon was a tough fight for Tanjiro at first in the manga, but in the end, he was just a low-level grunt. For Bai Lan now, it was like squashing an ant. No contest. The hand demon never even saw it coming. Once the last of the meatball was gone, Bai Lan turned his attention to the trial member who was still shaking on the ground. He paused, seeing the guy's terror, then just shook his head and left. What the guy ran into was the hand demon. The hand demon was a little too tough for your average recruit, so Bai Lan didn't sweat it. If he'd just met a regular demon, Bai Lan would have thought this dude should quit the demon slayer gig and get a desk job, but after Bai Lan saved him, the recruit finally snapped out of it, scrambled to his feet and shouted his thanks. "Arnold, I owe you big time." Bai Lan didn't answer, just waved a hand and disappeared into the shadows, leaving the guy staring after him. The recruit just stood there for a minute, staring at the spot where the hand demon had vanished, lost in thought. Then, like he'd made a decision, he gripped his Nichiren sword and took off after Bai Lan. Didn't realize the hand demon was worth 50 comprehension points. Guess that means he was at least 5 times stronger than the demons I took down last night. No wonder he was king of Vine Attack Mountain. Out of the rookies here, only Chio Usagi and Tanjiro could have handled him. Too bad Xiangtu's weapon was already busted to hell at the time. If he'd had a decent Nichiren sword, the hand demon would be worm food right now. Bai Lan muttered to himself, checking his comprehension points as he ran through the dark woods. Then his eyes lit up. Killing the hand demon flushed them out of the woodwork. Sweet. Eyes gleaming, Bai Lan spun around and bolted toward the direction where he sensed the presence of several demons. Time flew by, and before he knew it, a week had passed, but on the 5th day, Bai Lan couldn't find any more demons. He didn't know if they were just hiding better, or if he'd taken them all out. Either way, Bai Lan had nothing to do for the last 2 days but wander around the forest, and while he was wandering, he ran into a few of the other recruits who'd made it. They weren't exactly having a good time. They were all jumpy, scared of every twig and leaf. What surprised Bai Lan was that the recruit he'd saved from the hand demon was still alive, although he was pretty banged up, but Bai Lan could sense the scent of demon blood on him, the scent you only get after actually killing one. And there were 2 scents, meaning this guy hadn't let the hand demon scare him off. He'd toughened up and was actually out there slaying. Bai Lan didn't say anything, but he had to give the guy props. When he saw Bai Lan, he went out of his way to thank him. Bai Lan could tell the guy saw him as some kind of role model. Bai Lan just ignored it. The guy could think whatever he wanted, as long as he didn't get in his way. Over the past few days, Bai Lan had racked up over 800 comprehension points from killing demons, only 200 short of that 100-fold upgrade. He figured he'd get the points he needed during this trial, but he was wrong. At the end of the 7th day, Bai Lan headed toward the gathering place. When he got there, a few others were already waiting. Bai Lan counted 6 people, including himself. The recruit he'd saved was there too. When the recruit spotted Bai Lan, he bowed respectfully, but Bai Lan ignored him. The recruit just smiled, nodded, and went back to resting. After Bai Lan, more figures started trickling out of the forest. The survivors. But after that, no one else came. A total of 10 people, including Bai Lan, had survived the trial, but Bai Lan looked at the survivors and just shook his head. Out of the remaining recruits, only Bai Lan and the recruit he'd saved looked like they could hold their own. The rest were just filling space, cannon fodder. Whether they made it through their first mission was up to dumb luck, because Bai Lan couldn't sense any demon blood on them. In other words, the other 8 recruits had just gotten lucky. Judging by their expressions, they were still in shock. Bai Lan looked away from them and stared at the torii gate. Just like before, Abuya Shikiamane walked slowly to the torii, flanked by 2 servants. Under the torii was a table covered in red cloth. Bai Lan knew the ore for forging the sun blade was hidden beneath the red cloth, ready to be chosen by those who'd passed the trial. Congratulations to everyone for surviving this trial and returning safely. Chapter 13. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After Amane Abuyashiki showed up, she congratulated the survivors of the final selection and then got right down to business. She explained the situation with the Demon Slayer Corps and had everyone choose their ore for forging their Nichiren blades, handing out contact crows. Everything went smoothly. Unlike what happened with Tanjiro Kamado, Bai Lan randomly picked a piece of orangutan scarlet ore, and her assigned crow perched on her shoulder. Then, Amane's attendants took everyone's measurements to make their Demon Slayer uniforms. And that was the end of the trial. Bai Lan wasn't interested in sticking around, so she turned to leave. Amane Abuyashiki didn't try to stop her, simply watching her go. Even though her husband, Abuyashiki Kiriya, wanted to meet Bai Lan. The invitation had already been passed on to Sakanji Urokadaki, so there was no need for her to get involved any further. On the way back, Bai Lan moved fast, a complete contrast to her arrival. It only took half a day to reach Sajiri Mountain. When Bai Lan got back to the cabin, Sakanji Urokadaki was standing quietly outside, seemingly waiting. When he saw Bai Lan, Urokadaki visibly flinched. It was subtle, but Bai Lan caught it. Even knowing how strong she was, the stories from Chio Usagi and the others had made Urokadaki a little worried. At least, that's what Bai Lan figured. "I'm back, Mr. Urokadaki," Bai Lan said with a smile. "Welcome back, Bai Lan." Urokadaki's voice was as gentle as ever. Inside the cabin, the familiar Japanese hot pot was simmering. Urokadaki added wood to the fire one last time, while Bai Lan happily dug in with a bowl. She had to admit, Urokadaki's hot pot was amazing. She hadn't gotten tired of it even after a month. While eating, Bai Lan made sure to put some in a small bowl next to her. Beside the bowl sat the crow responsible for connecting her with Demon Slayer HQ. It was practically her new buddy. Since Bai Lan needed the crow to get information about demons, she was going to treat it right. Crows were strange creatures. They looked like regular crows, but they could speak human language. They were a unique species in the world of Demon Slayer. She wondered how the Ubuyashiki clan found them, or maybe they were just regular crows, and the Ubuyashiki clan had figured out how to train them to be messenger birds. Bai Lan didn't know, and frankly, didn't care. "How did the final selection go?" Urokadaki asked, breaking the silence. Bai Lan stopped shoveling rice into her mouth. "Not great. 10 people made it, but only one besides me seems like they can actually kill demons. The other 8 barely survived by the skin of their teeth." Bai Lan shook her head and sighed. "Well, surviving is something," Urokadaki said. "If they can't handle it, they can always become hidden members." Urokadaki nodded, not surprised. In every final selection, some people just got lucky and barely scraped by. Most of them ended up as hidden members, working support roles. He knew that well. "By the way, Mr. Urokadaki, I killed a really weird demon during the trial." Bai Lan hesitated before telling a little white lie, recounting the story of the hand demon. Urokadaki was stunned into silence, listening to her tale. After a long pause, he stood up weakly, turned, and left the cabin. Bai Lan didn't try to stop him. She knew Urokadaki was probably feeling terrible, blaming himself. The swordsmen he trained wore warding masks, and that's why the hand demon targeted them. It was one thing not knowing, but now that he did, he couldn't just ignore it. Bai Lan knew telling him about the warding fox masks would be a heavy blow, but she still chose to do it, because even though it would hurt him, it might also help him move past it. Once he knew the whole story, Urokadaki wouldn't be afraid to train new demon slayers, or worry that they would die at the hands of the hand demon again. Watching Urokadaki sit on the tree stump outside, Bai Lan shook her head and went back to eating. Soon, the entire hot pot was gone, thanks to Bai Lan and her crow. Mostly Bai Lan, though. After clearing the dishes, Bai Lan quickly washed up and went to bed. Even though she was officially a demon slayer, the Corps wasn't sending her on missions just yet. Her uniform wasn't ready, and her Nichiren blade hadn't been forged. The missions would have to wait until those two things were taken care of. In the meantime, Bai Lan kept up her training as always, focusing on 2 things, practice and getting stronger. Urokadaki mentioned that the head of the Demon Slayer Corps, Ubuyashiki Kiriya, wanted to meet her at Demon Slayer HQ, but she declined. Even though she was a member now, she was only interested in hunting demons. She didn't want to go to HQ just yet. Urokadaki simply nodded and didn't push the issue. Time passed as Bai Lan continued her training. With the breath of the sun, her body grew stronger and stronger, her power steadily increasing. 10 days flew by. Then, one day, someone arrived who shattered the peace of Sajiri Mountain. A figure wearing a bamboo hat and a fox mask was visiting. Chapter 14. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Byakuran's blacksmith was nothing like Kamado Tanjiro's. He was calm and polite. The first time he met Byakuran, he bowed respectfully. "It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Gang Min, your swordsmith. I'm at your service." "I'm Byakuran," he replied, momentarily taken aback, "and the pleasure's all mine." He was polite, and Byakuran naturally reciprocated. His surprise stemmed from his anime-influenced perception of swordsmiths, thanks to Kamado Tanjiro's eccentric Hataru Haganazuka. Apparently, not all swordsmiths were so unique. It seemed Hataru Haganazuka was the exception, and most smiths were much more even-tempered. Good. After the brief introduction, Byakuran invited Gang Min into the wooden house. Urokadaki Sakanji wasn't there, he was out. Only Byakuran and the raven were present. Once inside, Gang Min set down his bag in front of Byakuran. "This is your Nichiren sword, Mr. Byakuran," he said softly, still exceptionally polite. Byakuran opened the bag without hesitation, revealing the contents. Inside was a sun-colored Nichiren sword, the handle and blade a shade of brown. The tsuba and scabbard were pure black. Gang Min seemed to favor this color, much like Haganazuka, but blacksmiths tended to like fire-related colors, so it wasn't surprising. Byakuran reached down and picked up the sword. He felt Gang Min's breath hitch slightly. The man was clearly nervous. Even with the mask, Byakuran knew Gang Min's eyes were glued to the Nichiren sword. Remembering Haganazuka's obsession with the sword's color, Byakuran understood exactly what Gang Min was thinking. Grasping the handle, Byakuran slowly drew the sword. The cold light flashed, and the sun sword was fully unsheathed. Gang Min's tension ratcheted up another notch. Instead of playing games, Byakuran immediately used his breathing technique. The Nichiren sword, yet to reveal its true color, instantly transformed. The entire blade deepened into an inky black. It's the color!" Gang Min exclaimed, his composure shattered. The polite blacksmith had finally lost it. Byakuran smiled faintly but didn't react otherwise. "Mr. Gang Min, I look forward to working with you." Gang Min regained some composure, though his voice still trembled with excitement. "Mr. Byakuran, I'll guarantee the sun sword's upkeep for as long as you need." "I'm at your service, sir." It was clear that the black color of Byakuran's sword was deeply significant to Gang Min, a fact Byakuran didn't intend to explore further. He wasn't interested in any of that. "So, the Nichiren sword's been delivered? That means you'll be starting your demon-slaying mission soon." Urokadaki Sakanji returned that evening. Hearing the smith had delivered the sword, he sighed softly. The Demon Slayer uniform had arrived 2 days earlier while Byakuran was training in the mountains. Now that Byakuran had both the uniform and sword, he would soon be hunting demons, and their time together was ending. It gave Urokadaki a pang. They'd only been together for a few months, but their bond was strong. He couldn't deny feeling a sense of loss at Byakuran's departure. "Yeah, it's here, and my Kasugai crow has gone back to HQ. It should be back with my assignments tomorrow," Byakuran replied with a nod. "I won't say too much. With your strength, you can handle even the 12 Kazuki, as long as you don't run into an upper rank," Urokadaki said simply. "Don't worry, I'm confident," Byakuran said with a smile. He didn't fully grasp the extent of his own power, but he knew one thing for sure: he could face upper-rank demons, except maybe upper rank 3 and above, and not be afraid. Only he knew how rapidly and terrifyingly his power had grown. It hadn't been clear when he first learned the breath of the sun, but after practicing for a while, Byakuran came to understand its true potential. In just half a month, he'd surpassed the strength of the former water Hashira, Urokadaki Sakanji, and now, nearly 2 months later, his power was increasing exponentially every day. Hashira-level swordsman could defeat a lower-rank demon, whether it be lower rank 6 or lower rank 1, Byakuran's strength had increased dramatically in this time, and he definitely had the ability to suppress the upper-rank demons. How to kill them, though, was another matter, and depended on him. After all, battles were constantly evolving, and no one could predict what would happen, but Byakuran was confident in himself. As long as it wasn't upper rank 3 or above, he could suppress or even kill those demons. Even upper rank 3, Akaza, wasn't untouchable. "Just have confidence," Urokadaki nodded, then began to share his experiences as a demon slayer. Byakuran listened intently. Even though he was already strong, Urokadaki's knowledge was invaluable, and he wouldn't be so arrogant as to dismiss it. Chapter 15. You are listening at novelfull.audio. "I'm on it," Bai Lan said, acknowledging the order. *, head south to that little town. They've got a people-eating demon problem. Folks are vanishing every night, clean disappearances, no trace left behind. No clue how strong this thing is. Hope it's not too weak. Anything less than a 12 Kazuki isn't much of a challenge. Recalling the mission brief from the messenger crow, Bai Lan touched his chin. Already on the move, the crow was circling overhead, guiding the way. Bai Lan had no idea where this southern town was, only the crow knew the location. Demon Slayer core missions are assigned based on proximity. Priority goes to slayers closest to the demon activity, so, this wasn't a long trip for Bai Lan. Only took half a day to reach the town. Arrived just as the sun was setting. This whole place reeks of demon. At this level, this should be interesting. Not like those chumps back in Vine Attack Mountain. Definitely a blood demon art user. And powerful enough to blanket the town in its aura, gotta be a tough one. Sensing the miasma, Bai Lan thought to herself, first things first, dinner. Bai Lan found a restaurant. After traveling all day, she was starving, plus, restaurants and pubs are the easiest places to pick up intel, and the sun hadn't fully set yet, so no demons would be out. Using the money Sakanji Urokadaki had given her, she enjoyed a good meal before getting down to business. Taking up position in the highest attic, Bai Lan sharpened her senses to the max, patiently waiting for the demon to show itself. Her perception range had expanded significantly in the past 10 days. The night wind was cool, ruffling Bai Lan's shoulder-length hair. Her crow perched quietly on her shoulder, a strange bond. Unlike Tanjiro's crow, this one seemed to enjoy Bai Lan's company, probably because she spoils it rotten. Bai Lan figured. Around her, the crow always ate well, a real feast. Made sense it wanted to stick around, considering the VIP treatment. Besides, Bai Lan didn't mind it there. She had absolute faith in her own strength. Against any demon except the 12 Kazuki, she could handle it, even with a crow on her shoulder. It wouldn't be a distraction or a liability. As if sensing her thoughts, the crow flapped its wings and gave a short caw. It wasn't one for idle chatter when there were no orders to relay. Bai Lan reached up and gently stroked its head, then sat down cross-legged, settling into wait. Compared to kneeling, Bai Lan much preferred sitting like this. Frankly, she had no love for this country, only negative feelings. She couldn't care less about the demons preying on its people. The only things she cared about were the characters from the anime she admired. No matter how many times Bai Lan dies without being looked down upon by Bai Lan will still feel the emotion. If it weren't for the comprehension points she got from killing demons, she wouldn't have bothered joining the Demon Slayer Corps, and sure enough, the demon didn't make her wait long. Within an hour of sunset, its presence flared up in the town. Bai Lan's perception range was only 100 meters, the demon's aura was too strong. Even if it exceeded this range, Bai Lan could still feel its approximate range. As soon as it appeared, she acted. With a burst of speed, Bai Lan leaped from the attic roof, heading straight for the source of the demonic energy. She arrived to find the demon already feeding. In a dark alley, a small, dark-skinned demon was hunched over a large corpse, devouring it with sickening sounds. Bai Lan's arrival startled it. The demon spun around to face her. Without hesitation, Bai Lan drew a fraction of her sun blade and lunged. Schwing! A flash of red fire, and the demon's head went flying, instantly turning to ash in midair. Still too weak, didn't even see me coming. Sheathing her sword, Bai Lan watched the demon's body crumble to dust and shook her head. At the same time, the system notification chimed in her mind. After hearing the system prompt, Bai Lan saw the scene in front of him. A bright light. Ding! Demon slain. 100 comprehension points earned. 100 points, not bad. Another one like this, and I can boost my understanding, Bai Lan said with a smile in her eyes. If she had enough comprehension points, she wouldn't have killed the demon so quickly. Instead, she would let the demon use its abilities to the fullest, then use the system to learn more powerful techniques. Unfortunately, she was still 100 points short. She would have to wait until next time to increase her comprehension. This demon was the only source of the miasma in this town. In other words, mission accomplished. Time to find a place to crash. Looking at the spot where the demon had vanished, Bai Lan muttered to herself, then turned and walked away, ignoring the corpse on the ground. Chapter 16. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Host, Bai Lan. Abilities, water breathing, sun breathing, comprehension points, 930. Just 70 points shy of a 100-fold increase. Bai Lan mused, eyes fixed on the system panel. He was currently en route to his next mission, having wrapped up his first ghost hunt. New assignments were already rolling in, he didn't even need to request them. His crow, Z, had already lined up several. As soon as one mission ended, another would automatically begin. It was just like Tanjiro's situation in the original story, the standard operating procedure for the Demon Slayer Corps. I wonder if he's left yet? How do these crows know when a mission's done? Do they have some kind of special communication network? Bai Lan was curious about the logistics, but it was just a passing thought. He wasn't about to get bogged down in the details. Crows aren't exactly geniuses. They can handle basic communication, but anything complex is out of the question. Bai Lan's sole purpose in this world was to hunt demons, plain and simple. He was all in, so, he was eager to take on as many assignments as possible. For now, he wasn't planning to turn down anything unless it involved taking on more than 3 demons at once. He was totally fine with this constant mission flow. Guided by his crow, Bai Lan sped toward his destination. He arrived before nightfall, but after arriving, Bai Lan frowned slightly. Such a weak aura, and it's confined to one spot. This has gotta be a bottom-of-the-barrel demon. Sensing the demon's presence in the town, Bai Lan was a little bummed. The aura was no stronger than the run-of-the-mill demons from Tingshi Mountain, except for the hand demon. In other words, even if he took this demon down, he'd only get 10 comprehension points. This was a major letdown. He'd been hoping to boost his points to 1,000. If all the upcoming missions were like this, it would take him at least a week or so to reach his goal. Bai Lan sighed. Without dwelling on it too much, he headed straight for the strongest point of the demon's aura. Disappointed as he was, a demon was a demon, and it still needed to be dealt with. Otherwise, how was he supposed to get stronger? His time travel had completely changed his priorities. He wasn't the lazy otaku he used to be. Now that he had a chance to become powerful, he had to seize it, even if it took time. With that thought, Bai Lan picked up the pace, his figure darting across the rooftops. In a matter of minutes, he arrived at the source of the demon's aura. It was about as pathetic as he'd expected. This demon didn't have any blood demon art and wasn't even trying to hide. It was a far cry from his last target. Bai Lan spotted it immediately. Even though it was night, the demon wasn't out hunting. Instead, it was sound asleep in a cellar. When Bai Lan opened the cellar door, the thing didn't even stir. Bai Lan's mouth twitched. Do demons really come this pathetic? Shaking his head, Bai Lan didn't overthink it. He quickly drew his sun-breathing blade, and with a flash of steel, ended the demon's miserable existence. Immediately, the system notification popped up. As Bai Lan had predicted, he only got 10 comprehension points. He sighed softly, closed the cellar, and looked up at the sky. His crow was circling above. Since he'd jumped right into the hunt, Z hadn't landed on his shoulder. As Bai Lan looked up, the crow descended and perched on his shoulder. The next assignment is in Osaka City, northeast of here. Bai Lan is to proceed with all haste. There's a major demon outbreak. The crow relayed the instructions. Bai Lan's eyes lit up. The word major implied a serious situation. Did that mean the demons there were particularly strong? Demons were formidable creatures, but they weren't exactly living in the Stone Age. Steam engines existed, and there were certainly more powerful weapons around. And in a major city like Osaka, security would be tight. If demons could cause a significant outbreak there, they had to be pretty damn powerful, maybe even 12 Kazuki level. The thought of facing a 12 Kazuki demon filled Bai Lan with excitement. The previous demon wasn't strong, but he still got 100 comprehension points. How many points would he get for taking down a 12 Kazuki demon? Hundreds? Thousands? Bai Lan couldn't wait to find out. Without a second thought, Bai Lan set off again. When he heard Osaka, he thought it was close by, but after traveling all day and night, he realized he'd been way off. After asking around in the towns he passed through, Bai Lan learned the exact location of Osaka. At his current speed, it would take at least 2 more days to get there. Come to think of it, Nintaki-san probably reported my strength, so the Demon Slayer headquarters gave me this task. Otherwise, ordinary team members would get slaughtered. After a day of travel, Bai Lan had calmed down. After a moment of thought, he understood why the Demon Slayer Corps would give him a task so far from his current location. Because they knew he was strong, so they felt relieved leaving this task to him. There is no other explanation. Chapter 17. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Osaka's a pretty big city. Even back then it was booming. At night, it's all lit up with neon, and the streets are packed with people, cars inching through the crowds. The whole place just screams money and good times. I guess most big cities were like that. No wonder Tanjiro, coming straight from the mountains, looked like a total country bumpkin when he hit Tokyo's Asakusa district. Even though Japan was starting to modernize, it was still kind of behind, but for Bai Lan, who'd seen the 21st century, Osaka wasn't anything special. Honestly, it seemed a little backwards. Walking through the crowd, Bai Lan frowned. The big cities back then were already pretty hopping. Even late at night, the streets were full of people, that thick human energy just everywhere. That energy was masking the demon's aura, making it hard for Bai Lan to pick them up. Even though she'd learned to sense demons from Urokodaki Sakanji, she couldn't track them by scent like Tanjiro. This is a pain, Bai Lan muttered, weaving through the crowd. Trying to find her target in this was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Looking at the crowds, it seemed like this city never stopped. He figured he'd find a dark alley. Bai Lan leaped up, reaching the rooftops in seconds. Then she started hopping across the roofs, scanning the area. Osaka was huge, totally different from the small towns she'd been to. She couldn't just climb to the highest point and wait for a demon to show up. Patrolling was the only option. She spent the whole night crisscrossing Osaka, but found nothing. The city was saturated with demonic energy, but it was all mixed in with the human presence, impossible to separate. Looks like I need to level up my perception skills, or I'll run into this again, she thought, taking a deep breath. Inasuke spatial awareness would be really useful. If she used the 100-fold boost, she should be able to get some serious perception skills. But that guy was probably still out wrestling wild boars somewhere. He still had 4 years before joining the Demon Slayer Corps. Shaking her head, Bai Lan didn't dwell on it. This was something to think about long-term. In the future, she'd have to focus on that. It would have been awesome if I had those comprehension points back then. When Urokodaki-sensei taught me the basics, I could have used the boost and gotten some crazy good ability. I already have a pretty decent perception ability. Too bad I've already learned it, can't get more. Wait, does the system actually say you can't keep boosting skills you've already learned? Bai Lan mumbled, suddenly realizing something. System? She asked carefully in her mind. Host, you can indeed use comprehension amplification on skills you've already learned, and skills already amplified can be boosted again, but the multiplier must be higher than the previous time. The host's perception ability can be amplified starting from scratch, but the sun breathing and water breathing require more than 100 times comprehension increase to be further strengthened. The system responded helpfully. Got it, I understand. Thanks, system. You're welcome, host. Pleased with the response, Bai Lan realized she didn't need to hunt down masters of perception. She could just boost her own, but since she'd already decided to start all boosts at 100-fold, she wouldn't just use it casually. Forget regeneration for now, perception comes first. That way, I can actually find and kill demons without wandering around aimlessly. Wasting no time, Bai Lan found a hotel. After a night of fruitless searching, she was tired and needed to rest during the day. In this era, carrying swords was illegal. Anyone caught would be reported. It was a headache for the Demon Slayer Corps. You needed the Nichiren blade to kill demons. Demon slayers often got grief for it. But it wasn't a problem for Bai Lan. She had a system inventory. She could just stash the sun blade without worrying about patrols. When the fight started, she could pull it out instantly. After a good meal, Bai Lan cleaned up and crashed. She woke up after 4 in the afternoon. After grabbing dinner, Bai Lan went out. The bird perched on her shoulder, drawing stares, but she ignored it. The streets were less crowded during the day since everyone was at work. Only a few unemployed people were out and about, which, technically, included Bai Lan, lol, with fewer people, the human energy was lighter. Bai Lan took the opportunity to pinpoint a few spots with a stronger demonic presence. Hope I find something tonight. Looking at the setting sun, Bai Lan murmured and then disappeared into a dark alley. Chapter 18. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the blink of an eye, darkness fell. Bai Lan was perched silently in a large tree in the courtyard. The tree was thick with leaves, providing excellent cover for the now 12-year-old Bai Lan, whose small frame blended in seamlessly. No one would suspect she was there. This particular courtyard was one she'd identified as having a strong demonic presence. Though an actual demon attack was unlikely, the odds of it being a hideout were high. Bai Lan was betting on luck. Last night's fruitless search had taught her Osaka was too vast to comb for auras alone. Better to stake out places where the demonic energy was concentrated. If one night didn't pay off, she'd try 2, 3, or even a week, changing her vantage point daily. Bai Lan was confident she'd corner this demon eventually. Time crawled by. Bai Lan sat motionless on the branch, eyes closed, like a stone statue. Suddenly, her eyes snapped open, and she shot off towards the northeast. Close! She muttered, leaping from the tree and racing in that direction. The demon's aura had erupted. It seemed last night wasn't a case of the human presence masking the demon, but rather the demon simply hadn't moved. However, to radiate such a strong demonic presence from this distance, the target this time had to be one of the 12 Kazuki. This is it. Bai Lan thought, adrenaline pumping. This surge of demonic energy was far greater than that of the demon from her first mission, at least 10 times stronger, and that demon was strong enough to give seasoned demon slayers a run for their money. Bai Lan estimated it would take someone of her current skill to take it down, 10 times her strength. That put this demon at least at the B level, maybe even A. That's practically pillar level. Only one type of demon matched that description, a member of the lower ranks. That's why Bai Lan was so hyped. If she took down a lower rank, according to the system, she could earn thousands of comprehension points, possibly even enough for a 200-fold increase. Without hesitation, Bai Lan kicked her speed into high gear, becoming a blur on the rooftops. She feared even a moment's delay could let the thing melt back into the city. Fortunately, she arrived at the location before the demon could vanish, but though she was at the destination, Bai Lan saw no sign of the demon. She now stood in an open space. It was surprising to find such a large empty lot in a city where real estate was so valuable. He's hiding it, she concluded. Even though she didn't see the demon, Bai Lan was certain it hadn't left. Most likely, it was using some sort of demon art to conceal itself. This demon probably had space-related abilities. A vanishing trick to hide its presence. Even so, Bai Lan wasn't worried. She strode towards the point where the demonic aura was strongest, drawing her sun blade as she went. Here it is. The stench is overpowering, she muttered. Bai Lan's Nichiren sword burst into flames, casting a flickering light across the dark lot. Suddenly, Bai Lan thrust her flaming sword into empty air. Chi, star, the blade met resistance, and the tip seemed to vanish. In the darkness, a ball of fire erupted, followed by a sound like shattering glass. Cracks spread like spiderwebs through the flames. Then, with an explosive sound, the web of cracks shattered. The entire open space seemed to transform. The sandy ground became tatami mats, the empty lot replaced by a Japanese-style room. In the room, a figure was hunched over another, feeding voraciously. Blood was splattered everywhere. Bai Lan glanced at the victim, now barely recognizable. But she felt nothing, no revulsion, no pity. As she'd said before, she had little sympathy for most of the people in this country. She didn't care about this unlucky guy being eaten alive. All she cared about was how many comprehension points she'd get after killing the demon. That was it. This demon was unbelievably arrogant. Bai Lan was standing right behind him, and yet he showed no sign of noticing, continuing to devour the corpse. It was impossible he didn't know she was there. Bai Lan was sure this room was part of the demon's blood demon art. Had he let her in on purpose? She was no longer in the real world, but inside a space created by the demon's art. A space-type vanishing trick, rare. Too bad I don't have enough comprehension points to learn it. Maybe I should try it 10 times, nah, forget it, As Bai Lan mused, the demon finally seemed to register her presence and turned around. Interesting, the demon said, wiping blood from his mouth. A demon slayer with no rage. Bai Lan finally got a clear look at her enemy. His face was marked with 3 deep scars. The iris of his left eye was branded with the kanji for lower rank. His ears were pointed and adorned with 2 golden earrings each. So it is one of the 12 Kazuki. Lower rank 3. Looks like my luck's pretty good, Bai Lan said, a slight smile playing on her lips. What was that? Chapter 19. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The demon in front of Bai Lan was Diseased Leaf, one of the weaker demons swept up after the battle at Nadagumo Mountain by Muzan Kibutsuji from the 12 Kazuki. He looked shocked, both surprised by Bai Lan's words and enraged. Without hesitation, the furious Diseased Leaf attacked, waving his hand. Cracks ripped through the air in front of him, speeding toward Bai Lan. It was as if space itself was being torn apart. Bai Lan was slightly taken aback. The attack was similar to Whitebeard's. Tremor fruit. Whitebeard's power also manifested as shattering space. However, compared to Whitebeard shaking the very atmosphere, Diseased Leaf's ability seemed weak. Aside from quickly spreading towards her, Bai Lan didn't sense anything wrong with the space around her. It seemed the cracks needed to reach her body to inflict damage. Whitebeard could just punch the air and obliterate everything within the range of the cracks. Bai Lan's mind raced, though barely a second passed. The cracks were already upon her. Facing the feeble attack, Bai Lan simply swung her Nichiren blade. The sword shattered the cracks instantly. The attack lacked the grandeur expected of a spatial ability. It seemed more like a parlor trick. Bai Lan thought Whitebeard would have crushed this guy if he saw him. So lame. However, Bai Lan knew why the attack was so weak. Diseased Leaf hadn't intended to kill her with it. It was just a bluff. After destroying the cracks, Bai Lan spun and slashed without thinking. Flames flashed, blood sprayed, and a head soared into the air. How can this be? Diseased Leaf's head turned to ash along with his body, his face frozen in disbelief. The surrounding space shifted again, and Bai Lan found herself back in the open clearing. Ding! Killed Diseased Leaf. Congratulations to the host for gaining 1,200 comprehension points. Even as a demon, he was too weak. With a flick of her sun blade, Bai Lan scattered the flames and sheathed the sword. Looking at the not yet totally ashen body on the ground, Diseased Leaf was strong but couldn't keep up with her speed, even compared to lower rank 5, Rui was Muzan Kibutsuji's favorite, receiving a lot of his blood. Rui could be said to be a top lower rank demon. If Rui recovered all his blood, he would probably be able to touch the upper ranks. Although Rui hadn't recovered all his blood on Nadagumo Mountain, he was still stronger than Diseased Leaf. Even so, he was instantly killed by Jutomioka when he became a pillar. Bai Lan was just as strong as pillar-level Jutomioka. There was no need to waste time on Diseased Leaf. She could kill him instantly with a single strike. Why drag it out when she could end it quickly? Bai Lan held out her arm, and her crow landed on her shoulder. Mission accomplished. This time, the demon was Diseased Leaf. Bai Lan said to the crow. Understood. The crow flapped its wings and flew off into the distance, carrying the information. Killing one of the 12 Kazuki was a serious matter and had to be reported immediately. Bai Lan's crow was heading towards the Demon Slayer headquarters. That meant Bai Lan could slack off for a few days. She stretched and pounded her legs, stiff from squatting in the tree for too long. Then, Bai Lan focused on the system panel. Host, Bai Lan. Abilities, water breathing, sun breathing, comprehension points. 2140, looks like skills not learned through the system don't show up on the panel. Whatever. System, use 100-fold comprehension amplification to unlock my perception ability. Bai Lan muttered, then got down to business. Ding. 100-fold increase in understanding successful. Ding. Congratulations to the host for unlocking spatial perception. Ding. Congratulations to the host for realizing the world is so close. Huh. Spatial perception. Isn't that Inosuke's thing? And the world is so close. What's that supposed to mean? Bai Lan was puzzled. She didn't dwell on it. She closed her eyes and focused on the benefits of the comprehension boost. Soon, Bai Lan opened her eyes, her expression clear. Spatial perception was like Inazuk's ability, but with a massive range, 10,000 meters. When Bai Lan activated the skill, everything within that radius would be imprinted in her mind, creating a three-dimensional map, allowing her to know everything within the range. Within that range, nothing could hide. The world is so close was also related to spatial perception. Within the range of spatial perception, Bai Lan could teleport at will. However, both spatial perception and the world is so close drained a lot of energy. Even Bai Lan couldn't use them frequently. Frequent meant within a short period. She could use it dozens or hundreds of times. She could teleport 10,000 meters instantly, though she can do that only a dozen of times in a short period. But for short-distance teleportation, with Bai Lan's physical strength, she can teleport hundreds or thousands of times, no problem. What an incredible ability I've gained. Bai Lan smiled, looking at the new abilities on the system panel. Flying Thunder God. Chapter 20. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Meanwhile, back in Tokyo Fuchu, in a lavish villa, a pale young man with scarlet eyes looked up from his desk. A cold glint flashed in his gaze. The lower third is dead, he murmured. Taken out in one shot. Looks like the Demon Slayer Corps has another pillar-level fighter. He quickly dismissed the thought. He could sense the death of demons at the 12 Kazuki level, but a lower rank wasn't worth his concern. They were easily replaced. Over the years, plenty of lower ranks had fallen to the Demon Slayers. If an upper rank went down, that might warrant his attention. This era is such a bore, Bai Lan muttered, strolling through the crowded streets, hands behind his head. Since arriving in this world, it's been nothing but intense training and missions, with little downtime. Now that he finally had some, Bai Lan wandered around Osaka City, waiting for the Kasugai Crow to return with his next assignment. But after a day of sightseeing, Bai Lan was bored stiff. He just couldn't get into the local attractions. Compared to the 21st century, this era was a drag. With a shake of his head and a glance at the setting sun, Bai Lan turned and headed back to his hotel. Elsewhere, the Kasugai Crow arrived at Demon Slayer HQ with news of Bai Lan's victory over the lower rank 3. Abuyashiki Yoya smiled upon hearing the report. The strength of the Demon Slayer Corps was his greatest joy. Their mortality rate was high, alive and well one day, gone the next. Strength meant a better chance of survival. Bai Lan's power, enough to defeat a 12 Kazuki, was a cause for celebration for the leader of the Demon Slayer Corps. Officially recognized Bai Lan as a pillar, Abuyashiki Yoya instructed. And schedule a new pillar meeting. Turning to his wife, Abuyashiki Amain, he added, please inform Bai Lan and ask him to attend. Arrange for Ian to escort him. Killing a 12 Kazuki, upper or lower rank, was grounds for becoming a pillar. This was a long-standing rule of the Demon Slayer Corps, and no one would dispute it. Of course, defeating a 12 Kazuki wasn't the only path to becoming a pillar. One could also prove their worth by challenging and defeating a current pillar, or by demonstrating exceptional skill and a high kill count of other demons. Bai Lan's case was the former. Abuyashiki Amain nodded. Of course. She rose and left to carry out her husband's orders. Soon, word spread throughout the Demon Slayer Corps. Within half a day, everyone knew that Byakuren had slain the lower rank 3 and earned the title of Demon Slayer Pillar. The news energized the Demon Slayers, filling them with hope and excitement. More pillars meant a stronger corps, increasing their chances of eradicating demons and bringing an end to the era of human suffering. Those dedicated to hunting demons and ending this nightmare couldn't be happier. Even the current pillars couldn't help but crack a smile. Ah, it's wonderful to have another comrade of our caliber. In a mountain forest, Himejima Jyomiai, the stone pillar, wept with joy upon hearing the news from his Kasugai Crow, his hands clasped in prayer. At the Butterfly Mansion, the Kocho sisters, Kane and Shinobu, smiled brightly as they read the message. Even Shinobu, typically so serious, mirrored her sister's cheerful expression. That's wonderful, sister, Shinobu said. Yes, now we have another ally to stand against the 12 Kazuki, Kane replied. It seems the master has called a pillar meeting so we can meet him. It's time for me to depart. Kane said, rising to her feet. Be careful on your journey, Shinobu replied. I will. A new pillar. In a bamboo forest, Shinazugawa Sanemi, the newly appointed wind pillar, frowned at the letter in his hand. He defeated a lower rank 3. I wonder about his strength and personality. At this time, there were only 3 pillars in the Demon Slayer Corps, Himejima Jyomiai, the stone pillar, Kocho Kane, the flower pillar, and Shinazugawa Sanemi, the wind pillar, the future flame, insect, mist, love, snake, water, and sound pillars were still trainees. Kaijuro Rengoku, the future flame pillar, hadn't even reached rank A, while Kocho Shinobu, insect, Aguro Abane, snake, Tomioka Ju, water, and Yuzui Tengen, sound, were still lower-ranked members. Muchiro Takedo, mist, was still in the sticks, waiting to be discovered. Mitsuri Kanroji, love, was likely on another blind date. Mitsuri would join the Demon Slayer Corps 2 years later, becoming a disciple of the Flame Pillar and developing her unique love-breathing technique. Currently, the Demon Slayer Corps was far weaker and less experienced than it would be during Tanjiro Kamato's time. Meanwhile, Bai Lan greeted the return of the Kasugai Crow and received Ubuyashiki Yoya's summons. Head to Demon Slayer HQ. That place doesn't seem like much fun, and I'm not particularly interested in the title of pillar, Bai Lan said with a yawn. If he really wanted to go, Bai Lan would have accepted Ubuyashiki Yoya's previous invitation, delivered by the Kikushi. Please go. Please go. Hearing Bai Lan's reluctance, the Kasugai Crow, programmed to follow orders, began to nag incessantly, leaving Bai Lan speechless. Alright, I'll go.